Welcome to Multiplication Mania, Tips, Tricks, and Tools. I'm Teacher Bob. In this course, we're going to learn about multiplication. Multiplication is just a fast way of adding the same number over and over again. For example, if we have three groups of 2 hats, instead of saying 2 plus 2 plus 2 is equal to 6, we can also say 3 times 2. We can also take a look at this vertically as well. We can see compared to groups of 2 hats here, which we have 3 groups, we've also got 2 groups of 3 hats. So 3 times 2 or 2 times 3, just depending on the way you look at this. All right. Let's talk about multiplying by zeros and ones. These are very important facts to remember. When you multiply by 0, the answer is always 0. For example, if we have 0 times 4, times just means multiply, our answer is equal to 0. Anything that we multiply by 0, remember, is going to give us 0. 0 of something is still 0, or nothing. Okay, what about multiplying by 1? For example, if we had 1 times 7, we have 1 of something. And 1 of something is the same something or the same amount. Nothing has changed. So if we have one group of 7, well, how many is in the group? 7. So it remains a 7. 0 times 7 is equal to 0. 0 sevens is 0. And if we had 1 times 4, I'm just reversing these numbers here, well, our answer is still 4, isn't it? Nothing changes. All right, let's have you pause the video, and I would like you to work on the questions that you see on the screen. You pause the video, and then when you're finished, come on back and we will compare our answers. We'll go through them together. Welcome back. Let's go through these questions together. As we've said, if you're multiplying something with a 0, you're going to get an answer of 0. 0 of something is 0. It's nothing. And if you have 1 of something, 1 times something, well, we have that something or that amount. That amount does not change. For example, in 2, 1 times 7 is equal to 7. So number 3, 0 times 10, that gives us 0. 1 times 3 gives us the product of 3. And 0 times 4 gives us the product of 0. 0 times something is 0. 1 times something is itself. And I just used the term product. If you're not familiar with that word, that's simply the answer when we're multiplying. product is the answer to multiplication. Great job. Okay, let's continue. Let's now talk about how to multiply with 2s and 5s and 10s. Okay, so when we started, we talked about multiplication simply being a rapid form of skip counting, right? So let's start with an example here. 2 times 4. Well, if we have 2 and we're multiplying by 4, we're simply skip counting by 2's 4 times. So this 2 times 4 is really 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, isn't it? Which is 2, 4, 6, 8. So that's another way to look at this. The answer is 8 when we're multiplying with the 2. If we're multiplying by 5's, well, we're skip counting with 5's. So an example question might be 5 times 3. So we can think of that as skip counting with 5's 3 times. 2's and 5's and 10's, they're probably the most common facts. They follow easy patterns. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 5, 10, 15, which is our answer for the second question, and 10's are easy as well. 10 times 4, we can skip count by 10's 4 times. 10, 20, 30, 40. Our answer is 40. All right, you're doing great. Now, I want to share with you a very powerful strategy in multiplication, and it's called the commutative property of multiplication, and it's very easy to use. Don't be bothered by that name. There's commutative properties of other operations as well, but there is one for multiplication, and all of that it means is we're going to switch the order. If we switch the order of the numbers that we're multiplying, we will get the same answer. So if we have 2 times 4, we can switch these two numbers around, and that we can say, instead of 2 times 4, we can say 4 times 2. Whichever way you say it, 2 times 4 or 4 times 2, the answer is 8, regardless. If we have 5 times 3 by the commutative property, we can change these numbers around. 5 times 3 is equal to 3 times 5 also, and both ways of stating this give you the same product. 10 times 4 is equal to 40, which is also equal to 4 times 10. All right, the commutative property, why is it such an important property in multiplication? Well, if you know, for example, in our first question up here, if you knew the 2 times table, but you did not know the 4 times table, if you knew that 2 times 4 is equal to 8, well, you know then, by switching it around, using the commutative property, you know 4 times 2 is also equal to 8. Switching the number order does not change the answer. So if you don't know the answer when you're multiplying two numbers, switch them around. Is it a math fact that you know? It just might be. In fact, this works out to about, if you know half of the times table, if you know the right ones, you'll know the other half as well, just by the odds of the commutative property being something that you know when you switch the numbers, the order. All right, so we've looked at multiplying by zeros, ones, twos, fives, and tens. Now, I'd like you to pause the video again and take a look at the questions here, multiplying with the twos and fives and tens. And I would, like I said, I'd like you to pause the video, do the questions, and then come on back and we'll go through these together. All right, nice to see you back. Okay, these questions are for multiplying by twos and fives and tens. And question 1 asks us 2 times 5. Well, we've gone over twos, and multiplying by twos and multiplying by fives, so we know that we could multiply either way, and the commutative property tells us that 2 times 5 is equal to 5 times 2, and you can skip count either way. You can skip count by twos or skip count by fives. If you skip count by twos, it'll be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That'll be our answer. If you skip count the other way, if you skip count by fives and the 2 tells you how many fives you're going to count, it'll be 5, 10. Also gives you the answer of 10. All right, number 2, 5 times 4. Well, we've talked about fives. We're going to talk about fours in an upcoming lesson, multiplying with fours. So we're going to skip count by fives, and we're going to do this 4 times. That's what the second number tells us to do. So 5, 10, 15, 20 is our answer. If you knew the 4 times table, you could certainly switch it around, but we're going to talk about the 4 times table, like I say, in the next lesson. Okay, number 3, 10 times 2. It's also equal to 2 times 10. That gives us 20 by skip counting either the 10 or the 2. 2 times 3, well, 2, 4, 6 is our answer. 10 times 3, we can skip count with either of those numbers by the number of times that the other number says. But when we're multiplying with a 10, there is another way to multiply. What you do whenever you're multiplying by a 10, all you have to do is add a 0 to the other number. So if we're going 10 times 3, well, that's 3 with a 0. This 0 here is attached to the 3. It'd be like saying 10 times 4 is equal to 40. We take the 4 here and we add a 0 to it. Simple as that. All right, fantastic work today. We've learned that multiplication is like repeated addition. We also practice multiplying with zeros and ones and fives and tens. You did a great job with these facts. And you also learned about the commutative property. Okay, let's do a quick review before we say goodbye. If we have, let's say, 5 times 9, what is the answer? Well, we haven't talked about nines. That's also coming up in the next lesson, so you have that to look forward to. But if you know the nines, you know you can skip count by either fives or nines. We haven't covered it yet, so we're just going to skip count with the fives. How many fives do we have? Well, we've got 9 of them. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. We've skip counted 9 5s. Okay, let's try one more. 10 times 7. Okay, well, you can skip count if you like, or you can take the 7 here and add a 0 to it. 70. Or 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. 7 tens. All right. That's a wrap. If you're having any trouble with any of this, take a look at the video again. Try your hand at the questions, go through the worksheet questions, and if you're still having trouble, get in touch with me and I'll be very happy to help you. One thing I do ask when you get in touch with me with questions, if you can, be as specific as you can be, just so that I know how to best help you. Remember, math is a journey, and Teacher Bob, that's me, will be with you every step of the way. Keep practicing, and multiplication will become easier and easier. Great job today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson. Bye for now.